Welcome to the Ion Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Well, we're just up here over Main and Market at 914 Bay Ridge Road in Suite 230, was it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we are here with Peter Holland, who is the principal, and I think that's the proper term for a law firm, of the Holland Law Firm here.
Yes.
Local, did I get that right?
Yeah, I think you did.
Or a senior partner, the guy that signs the checks.
Dishwasher, check signer.
I see the trash cans are empty, so you're doing a good job. You still
exactly.
I know the deal with being a independent business owner. And we first met, we're both members of SOFA, which is the South of Forest Drive Business Association.
Yes.
It was kind of funny when we were trying to figure this out. I was talking to somebody in your office, Casey, and she says, well, would you like to come in and sit with a table full of lawyers? I said, I'm going with the root canal. Let's go with one lawyer.
Understandable, but we have very nice and good-looking lawyers here. So
there you go. Before we get into the type of business that you're doing, how long have you been an attorney?
It's getting easier to say, but I'm in year 30.
Oh my word.
I'm in year 30. I graduated law school in May of 1992, passed the bar in December, and sworn in December of 1992.
Did you pass the bar in the first time, or did you do a John Kennedy?
No. First time. Just passed it by the skin of my teeth.
It's cool. Where did you go to school?
I went to University of Maryland Law School.
Okay.
I started out in Annapolis. My older brother had gone to St. John's College as an undergrad. And I finished college and I discovered this wonderful thing called the master's program at St. John's. And so I enrolled in that. And they had a tie-in with University of Maryland Law School, so I could transfer some credits back and forth, and that seemed attractive.
That seems strange. I didn't realize they had something like that. That seems strange for St. John's to have the reciprocity to go back and forth. So, did you graduate at the top of your? This is a question my father always used to ask his doctors. He says, "Oh, it's pretty impressive that you went to Harvard, but where were you in your class?" I want the guy on the top as opposed to the guy on the bottom. But
no danger. No, I don't have not the top of the class or
Good deal.
Passed.
Well, the Holland Law Firm, I went onto your website and you specialize in consumer law, which seems to me to be a little bit of a vague kind of, or an all-encompassing type of a moniker for it. But what type of law do you practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. To say we do consumer law is, for many people, it is vague or it is all-encompassing. So let me give you an example of what we call consumer law. Things like identity theft. If you are a victim of identity theft, the way you would find that out is probably you may get a debt collection letter in the mail and you say, I don't recognize this credit card account, or you may get a notification that your credit score has suddenly dropped, or some other kind of thing. You may even get like a job and somebody does a background check and they say, well, you have this problem in your background and you never knew about it because in fact it wasn't you. And so what we see a lot of these days is that identity theft. We all hear about, hacks of your personal information. And so it's a very common scenario that we get in this office is somebody who may have 1, maybe 5, maybe 10, in some cases over 20 fraudulent accounts have been opened in their name, and then they can't get it fixed. They're writing to the credit bureaus saying, this isn't me, here's my proof, and sometimes you can get it fixed, but when you can't get it fixed, we use things like the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act or the Federal Fair Debt Collection Practices Act to, go to court and rectify the situation.
Okay, so you're not, you can do nothing about the person that stole the identity.
Right.
But you're looking to find the legal ways to say, and I'm guessing that like in any kind of a legal situation, the burden of proof is on the lender per se.
Right.
So they would have to say, hey, this is why Peter Holland owes me this money. And then you can say, well, there's not my signature. Do you have a contract? But that's a hassle.
Precisely. It's a huge hassle. Most people don't realize this, but credit reports, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, if you look at them as a whole, there's about a 26% error rate. That means if you pull your credit reports, there's a 1 in 4 chance that there's something on there that's not correct. Maybe it's a minor thing that you want to fix, or it could be a major thing like, this is not my account. It could be something called like a mixed file. There's another John Frenet out there, or another Peter Holland out there, or 100 others. And somehow some of that information has gotten mixed in with yours.
Wow, that's, and the credit bureaus, they're not, what was it, the Experian that had their big data leak a couple of years ago, or one of them two?
Three. Yeah.
So you've got to worry about that. And they're obviously for profit as well.
They are multi-billion-dollar corporations. They make a huge amount of profit, and their products, unfortunately, have errors in them. And the burden really is on you to discover that and bring it to their attention. The way that the law works under the Fair Credit Reporting Act is that these bureaus, they have a duty to ensure the maximum possible accuracy of their information. But it's really kind of, unless you make a complaint, unless you bring it to their attention, nothing happens.
They don't know about the inaccuracy.
Correct. They don't know unless you bring it to their attention.
Wow. Well, I would think that you're talking about identity theft. How big of a
It is a big problem. We all get notifications that you were subject of a hack. I'm sure it's happened to you. I'm sure it's happened to most of the listeners. The problem is, okay, I was subject to a hack. Well, nothing bad has happened to me, lately or in the last 6 months or in the last year. But we don't know who some of these actors are that hacked 20 million accounts, for example. And when are they going to appear? I don't know, other than to tell you it's a big enough problem that we are kept very busy in this law office of 4 lawyers with these problems.
Is that like an hourglass, something that once you get an identity theft gets into one, somebody gets into my bank account or into my Southwest Visa or whatever it may be, right? That once they get in, it's very easily to spread to other areas or to really compound it, or are they just sort of happy to get a credit card that works?
Yeah, what we typically see, we do see bank account hacks. It's not unusual for us to get a call here that somebody, is out $20,000 or $30,000 from a single hack that, an account that had that much. But most common, we see credit cards. So just basically a credit card that was opened in your name, or a series of credit cards opened in your name, and suddenly there's balances on them of $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, and there's some collection agency coming after you to pay a whole slew of debts that you never incurred.
For that big screen TV that was that was purchased, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Well, I know that it's way back when when they would steal a physical credit card, they would quick go and get like a couple bucks worth of gasoline through an automated reader just to see if the card was valid.
That's correct.
And then run over to Best Buy and buy those 5 TVs and the computers and the stuff that could be easily fenced.
And that scenario hasn't really changed, although it doesn't require a physical card. Typically, you'll see a couple of small charges go through, and then they go crazy. And then they get it, and then you're stuck.
Do you think the move to electronic everything? You've got Apple Pay. I've got a digital driver's license now on my phone that I can go through TSA with. Good, bad?
I think the jury's out on that. If you talk to the security experts, a lot of people will say that the cloud is more secure than anything, more secure than paper. And I suppose that may be true, but the problem is if I get your password, I've got the keys to the kingdom. Similarly, what the security experts would say is if you go back to the old days, if they got the key to your office or the key to your filing cabinet, they had the key.
Keys to the kingdom too.
Yeah. The problem is with digital, we can search things just in an instant, right? Everything is more powerful, quicker, and so I think the jury's out on, which is more secure. What anyone will tell you is, more and more people moving to two-factor authentication. I know on my bank accounts, if I try to do something online, they're now insisting on sending me a code, to type in, and that seems like a good idea to me.
It's a hassle, but it's true. My son is in the cyber world, and he's no, you definitely have to do it. You definitely have to do the two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think identity theft would also go along with debt collection.
Yes.
And I mean, legitimate debt collection. I mean, is that something else that the Holland Law Firm handles?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time in the collection space. And again, the cases that we are most involved in is somebody who is being pursued for money they don't owe. We've talked about identity theft, but another thing may be just literally, charges on a credit card or a car loan or something that were not legitimate charges. We call them junk fees. I mean, everybody knows what junk fees are. And so we see that a lot in student loans, car loans, credit cards, medical debt. In addition to junk fees, a lot of what we see is lawsuits that are filed against consumers that are past the statute of limitations. Generally speaking, for most things in Maryland, it's a 3-year statute of limitations, yet we have seen things filed 5, 6, 7, even 10 years after that. And so we are, typically, if we're in the debt collection space, it's on behalf of somebody that does not owe the money claimed.
So you're not defending somebody that trying to negotiate down debt.
No, we're not a debt settlement company or credit repair company.
Right.
We're really, for the most part, a litigation shop, and we pick and choose our cases very carefully.
So you're not the debt collector like up in that one up in Pasadena that yeah, that was a funny story. Back when I owned a couple travel agencies right after 9/11, we fell behind on the rent, and the landlord was like, okay, we're going to evict you because you're behind. I'm like, all I need is 3 months to make it up. I'm catching up. And it was like, yeah, no. So we went to court, and I met the lawyer, and he's like, yeah, he says, you want to settle this? I'm like, well, yeah. He says, well, I'll tell you what, you owe like $3,000 or something like that. It wasn't much. He says, would you be able to pay it over the course of a year? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, okay, so let me explain. Let me get this right. Okay, yesterday I was willing to pay $3,000 over the course of 3 months, and today he's paying you $400 an hour to come down here to court to negotiate with me.
Right.
And now I get a year to pay it.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's kind of the, I'm like, okay, let's,
Yeah, it's ironic. It's similar, with these collection cases, it's similar to a traffic ticket. When you get a speeding ticket, everyone will tell you, go to court, right? Maybe the cop doesn't show up. Maybe the prosecutor, is willing to negotiate. Maybe the judge is lenient that day. With small claims cases in general, it's the same thing. The biggest problem we see is people just give up and they don't even show up. If you show up, go to court, negotiate, advocate for yourself.
Well, you're no worse off going to court.
Right. The worst that could happen is you lose, and for the full amount.
Then you are where you were before you walked in.
Right. Because if you don't walk in, you're guaranteed almost to lose for the full amount claimed. So always, get involved. Show up in court, hire a lawyer if you need to, but doing something is better than doing nothing, like most things in life.
That's true. As much as you want to push it back, okay, I'm just going to ignore that for now. That's not a good thing. Do you get into tenant stuff? Yeah. So the other thing we do on the consumer side, and I'll talk about the family law and the construction side and the general litigation in a minute. But yeah, landlord tenant, we do get into that. A lot of times it's on the class action sphere. So I talked earlier about people collecting money that's literally not owed. And so we have seen that in the landlord tenant context, property management companies, collection lawyers that are basically imposing fees, say in an HOA context or a landlord-tenant context, they're imposing fees that are not owed as a matter of law, or they're suing beyond the statute of limitations, for example. So we have had a number of class actions in that space. Okay. Well, you also have partnered with Joe Donahue, I believe, haven't you, for the Hackett thing? I mean, we're not going to get into the weeds on that because I know that's ongoing, but
right.
But as far as that goes, so I mean, it's you guys are working together to get some justification for the folks that are in there.
Right. That's correct. And that would be an example of another type of landlord-tenant action that is class action based.
Interesting. You mentioned construction and family law?
Yeah. So in addition to the consumer, we are a growing firm. I've been doing this for 30 years and recently entered a growth phase. So we've brought someone on who does family law. So that's divorce, custody, child support, visitation.
Do mediation too?
Mediation. I mean, mediation, when I started as a lawyer 30 years ago, mediation was a concept, a construct, and people talked about mediation. The fact is now you are forced to go to mediation in almost every case. So all lawyers are now engaged in mediation in some form or another, and most cases, the vast majority of cases, resolve out of court. That's true in family law. That's true in civil law in general. True in criminal law.
Then it just goes in front of a judge for a signature.
If you're talking about family law, yeah. I mean, if there's kids involved or property involved, yes, you can negotiate through mediation. You can litigate. You can partly litigate, partly negotiate. But at the end of the day, in a divorce situation, a judge has to sign off on it.
I thought it was recently, I know the Angelos family is going through their thing up in Baltimore, and the judge had said, look, I've seen the receipts, and this is going to get really ugly, and nobody's going to come out of this really well. So I'm going to encourage everybody to negotiate and really mediate this if you can. But we'll set the court date for next July. So,
well, you know, one of my favorite mottos is the best way to settle a lawsuit is to prepare for trial. And so if you're preparing as if you are going the full course, that shows the other side that you're ready to go the full course, and then it's kind of like peace through strength. Then it's more likely to result in a negotiated settlement. The worst thing you can do is just assume it's all going to work out, and then suddenly you wake up one day and you're picking a jury. So by preparing for trial in every case, we're able to maximize the mediation process.
Interesting. Well, it's sort of a different shift in what you've done in the law thing. I mean, trial, or litigate. And
well, everybody loves to say they're a trial lawyer, but if you look at the statistics, the chance of your getting to a full-blown jury trial are pretty low. The system is designed to weed out as many cases as possible, along the process.
That makes sense. I've had jury duty here in Anne Arundel County. I also had federal up in Baltimore, and dismissed all times. I mean, never sat on a jury. So
I think it's a real privilege to sit on a jury, or at least I think it would be, because I've never been picked. I've been called one time, and but that was back when I was a law student, I think, and I didn't get picked. But it's so important, in my opinion, that that we live in this democracy, and part of that is the privilege to participate in the court system as a juror.
I don't disagree with you there. I mean, you've got the whole jury of your peers. I mean, it's a phrase, but I mean, truly, it is.
It really is. And there's this common thing about people. Jury duty. I dread it. And lawyers will even say in court, well, we know you don't want to be here. I mean, what an awesome system we live in, where citizens get to make ultimate decisions in important things: civil rights, personal injury, criminal law. Is somebody going to be convicted and go to prison, or are they going to go free? I mean, think about that. It's just an awesome power that does not exist in a lot of countries. It's a really special feature of this country, and I take real pride in it. I'm proud to be an officer of the court and a participant in that system.
I agree. I would love to sit on a jury. I would love to see that process from a different angle, from
you and me both.
CSI and everything else. I would know it's not like that as well.
Yeah.
Construction law.
Yeah, so construction law, so we have an attorney now that we associate with as of counsel. His name's Derek Hills, and he has this really unique perspective for a construction lawyer, because he actually was in construction for 20 years before he went to law school. And he did estimating, he did project management, he did sites visits, he worked with vendors, he worked with adjusters, and so he brings all of that wealth of knowledge to going to law school and now being a practicing attorney. And he kind of focuses on custom built homes, kind of higher end custom, built homes gone wrong, or maybe there's a foundation crack, or maybe the roof trusses, weren't strong enough, that kind of thing.
Okay, I thought I was going to ask you whether this is more on a corporate level, like a developer working on a.
Well, it's corporate also. I mean, it also involves like businesses, say, for example, the owner of an office building. Okay, so the similar thing, if there's design defects, if there's, defects, that's kind of, those are kind of the cases that he really focuses on.
It sounds like he's got all the background to know where all the skeletons might be buried. Or
he knows where the skeletons are. I've worked with him. I've seen him talk to people and ask questions that wouldn't even occur, to me. And I'm a practicing lawyer, but construction, it's a specialty.
You stay in your lane.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, how many attorneys do you have working for you?
So we have 3 full-time attorneys, myself, Emmanuel Turnbull, Manny, and he really focuses on our consumer litigation, our fair credit reporting, identity theft especially. We have Jessica Russell. She focuses primarily on the family law, but we all do consumer. And then we have Derek Hills. His focuses primarily on the construction, but also consumer. We do things like car fraud, wrongful repossessions.
What's car fraud?
Car fraud, car dealer fraud. So somebody sells you a used car or a new car, and there's something that wasn't disclosed, like maybe that it was in a major accident, maybe that it had flood damage, maybe they have jacked the price up, the loan price up, maybe they've put in bogus charges. It could be run the gamut. You could think when you say, would you buy a used car from this person? Some of them are as bad as a rebuilt wreck. Some of them are not safe. They have, frame damage. It could be anything. Again, usually our angle is going to involve some aspect of consumer finance. Another one of my favorite mottos is liar in one, liar in all. So if somebody lied to you about the condition of the vehicle, for example, chances are there's some other lies in there too.
There's some other fibs there.
Yeah.
So I'd call you for my 74 Pinto with the Firestone 500s.
When it catches on fire. Yeah.
Only been driven by grandma to church on the weekends. What other types of law? I mean, you seem to have been expanding over the years. I mean, are you looking to expand into any other kind of law? Or are you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started out working for a general practitioner here in Annapolis, and I have done everything from divorce, civil rights, racial discrimination, gender discrimination, property condemnation. I mean, I really have done the whole gamut. And what I bring to the table now, I think, is that experience, that perspective of 30 years of helping people resolve disputes. And so in addition to the areas that I've talked about, I also do kind of general civil litigation. If you have a problem that needs, someone with a lot of perspective and experience, I help those kind of people as well.
Being an attorney, I mean, you know what flies and what doesn't fly.
Yeah.
From a legal point of view. I've heard of stories. I know Maryland and trip and fall.
Yeah.
And Maryland is, I think, one of 4 states that
contributory negligence.
Yeah. Or something along those lines. They're very difficult to win.
Right.
And I mean, that's some knowledge that, only an attorney really would have.
Yeah, that's true. And so that perspective, not too long ago, I was approached by an attorney who said, I'm retiring, I'm getting out of my practice, and I would like to help you negotiate, and represent me in that kind of exit strategy. That was a huge compliment. That was someone who had been practicing even longer than I have. But again, the reason that person picked me, said, well, you have the experience. And he said, you're a bridge builder, you're a peacemaker. And I do take a lot of pride. I bring that approach to all of the litigation and problem solving that I do. So, as I said earlier, the best way to settle a case is to prepare for trial. So by vigorous advocacy, then we can bring in that judgment to creatively resolve problems.
Do you do bankruptcy at all?
Don't do bankruptcy. That's kind of a specialty. I refer people on occasion to a bankruptcy lawyer. It's funny, when I used to do a lot of debt collection, I would tell people we were the bankruptcy prevention clinic rather than the bankruptcy clinic.
Fair.
You know, and actually it's still a truism. A lot of people, they just get so overwhelmed, they say, I have to declare bankruptcy. And it's an emotional decision. And there are plenty of good bankruptcy lawyers and also plenty of bankruptcy lawyers who will say, well, having made that emotional decision, I will help you declare bankruptcy. And it's not always something that's absolutely necessary.
Well, I will say that at one point, post-divorce and everything else, I mean, there was the bills and the private school and the whole thing was like, and I felt that way. And I was like, okay, let me make a phone call. And I did make a phone call. I did go in and I did say, and then I said, I think this is going to screw me for a long time.
Yeah.
So let me just see if I can muscle down and we came out on the other side without doing it. And I think that, I'm proud of that.
Yeah. You should be. Bankruptcy is another wonderful facet of our, legal system we've built, but it's not for everybody. And I don't think it should be a knee jerk or the go-to. It's important when you're feeling that way to sit down with an attorney and go through what is your situation? What are your options? We take pride in doing that as well. And, when we feel like this really needs the input of a bankruptcy attorney, then we have good people that we refer to.
Right. When's the best time to call an attorney and get an attorney involved in something like this? I mean, if I get a ding on my phone and says, hey, there's a new action on your credit report.
I think it's never too soon. I mean, we give people a lot of tools to do self-help. So if you had a ding on your credit report today, yeah, you could hire a lawyer, but there's also things that you could do to write a letter, and we'll show you the right letter to write and where to send it to get more information or to dispute something. And so we'll help you right from the outset, but not everything needs a lawyer. But to answer your question, the best time is sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I imagine that as you go through, I mean, there's probably a lot of forensics involved with, identity theft and...
There can be. What we're starting to see now, we're starting to deal with cases of forgery, which we've always, forgery has been around since biblical times probably, but forgery now of a document that was signed with DocuSign. Okay. And so, or otherwise electronically. And they say, well, it's, here's the trail and, here's the document trail of where it went and the IP addresses. But we have people that we know for a fact did not authorize or sign it. So that's a whole new interesting area when you say forensics, and there's people, I'm discovering that focus on that and specialize in that.
In that instance, that would be a DocuSign flaw in their system, probably.
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak about DocuSign in particular. I mean, every case, you got to look at, but I'm just saying, forgeries in the era of digital signatures is a whole new landscape. Always learning. I learn every day.
What's the biggest threat that consumers are facing right now looking into 2022, 2023 and beyond? I mean, is it identity theft? Is it digital?
Identity theft is, I think of it as a subset of, it's just credit, right? For better or for worse, we live in a credit-based society. Even if you said to me today, I'm going all cash, I cut up my credit cards, there's still places you can't get in, you can't do without a credit card. Try renting a car, or a hotel room without a credit card. It's an essential necessity of life to have a credit card in some form, even if you don't use it much. And so as long as we are credit-based, we will be credit scored. And so there are people right now as we sit here, or digital machines running algorithms on you and me. Our credit is being scored every day, every time you swipe that card. And there's new ways that, credit reports, credit bureaus are inventing new ways all the time. So I think, number one, keep in mind that credit is king in that sense. Cash is king always, but your credit determines a lot of what you do. It can determine where you live. It can determine what job you get. Try getting a security clearance if there's mistakes on your credit report. We deal with a lot of security clearance matters.
My son's going through that right now. He's working on a top secret clearance, and they're like, hey, we see like a $25 past due BG&E thing.
Yep.
And he's like, BG&E hasn't been in my name for 8 years, and it was, I think, a $25 disconnect fee that he may not have gotten the bill. And he's like, okay, well, we'll we'll go online and tap the payment and take care of it right away.
But and so I'm glad that our national security apparatus is that focused, because it's important to make sure people aren't vulnerable to bribery or extortion or what have you, that they're not a security risk. But with a 26% error in credit reports, it's a big problem. And living in the state of Maryland, where so many people have security clearances, that's another area that we really deal in a lot, is counseling people about that have a mistake like that on your credit report. What do you do? What do you tell your security officer? And so, going forward, I guess I would just answer it by saying the biggest issues are, generally speaking, consumer credit, consumer finance, being vigilant and not letting mistakes happen.
Yeah, let them manifest there. Well, I remember the last SOFO meeting, you sort of closed out and gave everybody the warning. He said, do the two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
There are certain steps that we can take. We can do the two-factor. I know I have the credit freeze. I think that's the right term on my credit reports, so that I am notified every time somebody tries to, or people just can't willy-nilly access them. And then unless I release it.
Just in the last week, I was reading an article in the newspaper that the Senate just did an investigation. Senator Warren led it, I think, and issued a report. And I believe the number was, in the last year, maybe it was the last 2 years, there were about $250 million worth of fraudulent bank account hacks, where people lost their money to a hacker. Okay, who let them in? Okay, was it you, the consumer, or did the bank apparatus let them in? And I'm talking about $250 million that people, for the most part, didn't get back because the bank blamed it on you rather than themselves. So they have the keys to your money is there, right? It's just like your credit is with the credit bureau, but really, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But in this context, you're guilty until proven innocent, meaning the burden is on you to make sure to monitor your credit reports. I've seen this scenario many times. People that don't really monitor their bank account statements. They're busy. They have kids. They have a job. And suddenly they realize, oh my God, $10,000, was stolen from me, 3 months ago or over a period of months. And if they sit on their rights, it doesn't turn out well.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody balances their checkbook anymore. That was the old days. It was like, okay, well, I've got this. And you used to sit there and say, well, I got a float. I'm mailing the rent check today. And
we really trust the banks to do. A lot of them, they'll categorize your expenses for you and list it, and you say, well, that looks beautiful. It must be correct. And if you don't look at it carefully, there could be a mistake in there, or there could be some money leaking out to an identity thief or a hacker. And the bank will have no sympathy if you come to them, after 90 days, they'll say, well, there was a 90-day window and you missed it. So
and you should have done it. It's sort of like putting your password on the sticky note on the side of your monitor on your on your computer, to a point. That's really interesting. So you got four attorneys here in the office, and you pretty much can handle a very wide variety of whatever legal issues.
Wide variety, we're really known for the consumer stuff, but we do also, the family law, construction law, and the general civil litigation. And then myself personally, I also counsel, kind of personal lawyer to people that have been around for a while, high net worth individuals, where I kind of oversee legal matters.
Just what they need there. So how long have you been in town?
Are you a native? No. I'm originally from New York State, and I came down here in '88 to go to St. John's College, and then I stayed and went to Maryland, and I've been an attorney in Annapolis since 1992.
Long time. I did take a 5-year hiatus where I taught full-time at University of Maryland Law School, and that was a lot of fun. I loved it. I did that from 2009 to 2014, and then I came back. And why'd you come back? If you love teaching, or did you miss practicing?
I loved teaching. I actually got to practice a little while I was there. I was running a consumer protection clinic. So I was actually training law students how to represent consumers in court. It was so much fun. That gig, it just kind of, it ran its course. It was never designed to be, a full career
forever.
change. Yeah, a forever. It was supposed to be 3 years, and I was able to raise some money and turn it into 5. But alas, it ended. And I love practice now more than ever because we are growing and the ever-changing landscape. I have been around since the days of typewriters. I remember early in my career, we had a case, and I brought a lawyer in to help me with the case. We sued 16 defendants. And what that means, if you're the lawyer doing that or a lawyer involved in that case, is every single piece of paper that got filed with the court had to be mailed to 16 people with, U.S. mail. And I remember the days we would work in my office, filing some motion or some paper with the court, and we'd be typing it in Annapolis. We would photocopy 16 copies in the photocopier, and then I would literally drive to Baltimore City to get it postmarked, by midnight, so that it was postmarked on the right day.
My girlfriend is an attorney, and she always says, "Boy, the kids today have it so easy with the internet and everything."
Yeah,
the notebooks and the manuals and case history and everything else. And the typewriters. I remember when I closed one of my offices, my own travel agency, I found a pack of carbon paper behind a cabinet. And my kids were a little young at the time, and you would have thought I discovered T-Rex.
Yeah.
They're like, "What is that? Oh my God!" It's kind of funny. What does the future hold for Peter Holland? I mean, you've been practicing for 30 years. You mentioned that you had another attorney that came to you to help transition out. I mean, are you looking at a beachfront place in Tahiti anytime soon?
Tahiti is on my bucket list. Yeah, I mean, I think for right now, I'm just really enjoying the business. I'm enjoying watching my kids grow from, little kids to adolescents to now young adults. I've got 18, 19, 23, and 26.
You're busy when you were younger.
Yeah, I was busy, and I'm looking forward to, traveling around and visiting with them. And but for right now, we're happy to be here. We're very proud to be on the cutting edge of, legal doctrine, legal practice, and also kind of the technology, the fully be on the cutting edge, and that's exciting.
It does seem like it would be. I mean, that's probably what keeps you coming in here with with a hop in your step and a smile on your face for the most part, because I mean, you're constantly evolving, and certainly when we're living in this technological and this digital world, and it's getting more and more so. Yeah, you're going to have more and more opportunities to learn and try to figure that puzzle out, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And, one example, you mentioned that we're both members of SOFO. So, that's a marriage of technology and everything else, because SOFO is a business owners organization. We got a lot of members, and during COVID, there was no such thing as in-person meetings. So we have been meeting on Zoom. And so we can get on a SOFO meeting and maybe have 20 or 30 business owners on there talking to each other about what trends they're seeing in their business in Annapolis, in the community. And that's cutting edge. We couldn't do that 5 years ago before Zoom existed.
No, and what getting a little bit off topic, but I mean, you talk about a business association, and SOFO represents pretty much like from up Chinkapin Round Road down Forest Drive with a couple of little offshoots. I'm finding more and more business owners are working together as opposed to, I'm in my own little isolated booth. In my own little world. They're reaching out. I know Jared Littman does a thing with Bay Ridge Wine and Spirits as far as the Cash for Schools and Lido Pizza, and Mike Friedman at Evolve Medical. It's a good thing.
I think it's a cultural thing. We're not as siloed. Maybe it's partly technology that brings us together. But, in the last few years, I had never heard this term before, but masterminds. You've probably heard of that. These businesses that come together in small groups, perhaps with a facilitator, to talk about their issues, their problems, what they're seeing, and to get input from someone who owns a travel agency, for me as a lawyer, or a medical practice or a hardware store owner, and see what do we all share in common as business owners, as corporate citizens. And I mean, I'm super jazzed about that. stuff.
It is. It's a good organization. If any businesses that are not members that are in that corridor, definitely check them out.
Please do.
Always welcome more input and everything else. Well, this has been exciting. I mean, congratulations on your 30 years, and
Yes.
for that you've been here since 92.
I was admitted in 92, and I was on Inner West Street, 77 West Street.
I had an attorney that did business that was at 77, Dan Downer.
Dan Downer was right downstairs from us, in there with Jonas Legum and Elliot Newcomb, and I was upstairs. It's been an exciting ride.
Well, we look forward to hearing more. You want to get more information at hollandlawfirm.com, which is really very easy to spell. There's nothing funky and different about that. If you want to come to 914 Bay Ridge Road, above the Main and Market Cafe, and it is Suite 230.
That is correct.
Is that the best way to get in touch with you? Just come onto the website first and then...
Yeah, the best way is we really do encourage people to come to the website, and we have a contact us button. If it's a new legal matter or something, the best way is to do it through the website, and then we can track it pretty easily and get back in touch with you.
Figure out the best person to handle the problem and go from there.
Exactly.
Hey, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.